Well, good morning, everybody. I feel a little loud. Is that loud? Well, I would say welcome, but this is not my home, so I'm going to leave that to some of our locals. But certainly want to appreciate or extend our appreciation for your hospitality here in Southeast Georgia, Candler County, a beautiful facility. Here on the Tiger campus. And before I get too deep into this, I know y'all have an intro from your school board chair, former representative, and 17-year member of the school board here in Candler County. And I'm gonna make sure I get his name right, Mr. Craig Lanier. Would you welcome us and take the podium this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We want to give an especially warm welcome to everyone this morning to Candler County, City of Metter, and most especially here at our school. This is the Metter College and Career Academy, a paired high school with Metter High School, and we're certainly happy to have you this morning. I want to introduce a few people to you before we give it back to Chairman Blackman. First of all, we'd like to recognize the First Lady of the House, Miss Dale Burns. We have two members of the Board of Education for Candler County, Cheryl Hendricks and Miss Brenda Brown. Over here to my left. Of course, our superintendent here in Candler County, Dr. Bubba Longrear, and First District RESA Director, Mr. Richard Smith. At this time, the Metter High School JROTC will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please rise.
Colors. Hope. Right. Face. Post. Breathing. Arms.
And Anna Ramos will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Left. Face. Forward. March.
If you'll remain standing, we have three ninth graders who are going to sing the national anthem for us. They are Michaela Sutton, who's a ninth grader at MCCA, Isabella Morales, who's a ninth grader at Metter High School, and Shakira Kirkland, who is a ninth grader at Metter College and Career Academy. And Emmy Hendricks, I'm sorry.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous heights o'er the ramparts we watched were so for the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
Now we'll call on Sutton Deacle, Metter High School junior, to lead us in prayer.
Good morning. Will y'all please bow your heads with me? Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day and for the opportunity to gather with these state leaders to discuss our concerns. Please create in us a spirit of cooperation and unity. May all we say and do here bring honor and glory to you. Please give us traveling mercies as we depart. Thank you for all the ways you bless us that we do not deserve. Forgive us where we fail you, and in your Son's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Sutton. Everyone may be seated. Now I'll turn it back over to the chairman, Representative Shaw Blackman.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that very much for that warm welcome, and what a great national anthem, prayer, and all of that. That was fantastic. And let's see, I wanted to make sure we had a chance for the committee to introduce themselves. I know we have a few members of the General Assembly here. We'd like to acknowledge the chairman of Senate Higher Ed, is that correct? Or just education, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Wonderful to have you with us, Chairman Billy Hickman. We also have Chairman Werkheiser is with us just from down the road. And then Representative Townsend had a little ways to drive. Thank you for being with us this morning. And of course, we are certainly blessed. No stranger to the education world, former teacher, and one thing I feel like I do have in common with Speaker Burns is we married up. So thank you for being with us this morning, Ms. Dale Burns. Would the members take just a minute, and I'll start down here with you, Representative Dawson, to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get a chance to hear from you.
Good morning. Thanks for hosting us today. I'm Representative Robert Dawson. I represent Fulton County and Coweta County up in Atlanta Metro.
Good morning. State Representative Mitchell Horner, District 3, Catoosa County.
Thanks so much for hosting us. I'm Bethany Ballard, and I represent House District 147, which is Houston County and Peach County.
Shaw Blackman, I'm from Houston County.
Holt Persinger, House District 119, which is Barrow and Jackson counties.
Well, Ms. Dale, yes, ma'am. Again, I think it's most appropriate for a number of the initiatives that we've pursued in the House. Members not only here have been involved, but Ms. Dale has certainly been a champion for education, public education, and those initiatives. And I really appreciate you being here this morning and giving opening remarks.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me? Okay. So, Dr. Longrear, that was so great to see your color guard and hear those 4 young ladies, and especially to be able to hear that invocation. It means a lot to me. And I'm so glad to see such a good crowd here, and I see a few faces. I see what you don't know about me. I was an elementary school principal, and one of my teachers is here, Holly Boykin from Scriven County. So it's really good to see you. Special. This is not the first time I've said this, so the speaker sends his greetings today, and his office staff sent me what they want me to say, because then that prevents me from saying anything I'm not supposed to say, right? But I'll do my best. I don't read these things so well, but I am excited to be here. Chairman Black, thank you for your special invitation to be here. I want to say something to the representatives that are on this committee first. I don't take it lightly. I'm not an elected person, and I know that. So I have great respect for y'all, especially because of what I know personally that you've been through to get where you are. That you raised your hand and you said, I want to make my state better. And I'm very aware you're sometimes faced with criticism. It's a hard job. It doesn't pay much. I don't take it lightly when I get asked to speak at these things, but I want to say thank you to y'all, because that group, what y'all don't know, they have embraced me and encouraged me, and they know I'm really passionate about education. It's so important to me, but I thank them. It's an honor to do that. So for 30 years, I've had firsthand experience with Georgia's education system in Effingham County and the policies and practices that were passed in Atlanta that administrators and teachers and students dealt with. Many of those policies gave us the tools and guidance and direction that we really needed for student success. But to be honest, there were other times when I felt really frustrated by the mandates, really frustrated, especially when I was an administrator, because I felt like they got in the way of my teachers and students and their ability to learn. And I see some of you shaking your head, so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm really grateful that this committee was formed this year, so that Shaw and all of the representatives, so that you could study this issue. You have worked hard in the House and in the Senate to make a difference when it comes to things like literacy and school safety and all educational outcomes, because you brought everybody to the table to talk about it. We talk about education, especially in the House, a lot. And because we bring people to the table, that's why this study committee was formed this year. And if it's something that we're going to continue to do if we want to make a difference, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas. So the feedback that I've heard from these hearings has been very invaluable, and I look forward to hearing the solutions that come out of this committee. I'm excited just to be here today. I welcome all of you. You have a great chairman of this committee, and I have to say, Bubba, on closing, so when I got out of the car, I was greeted by a goat that's right out here. Where but in Metter, Georgia could that happen, right? So thank you for letting me be here. I look forward to hearing what you have to say today. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dale. You stole my line. I was going to mention the goat myself when I got out of the car. No, wonderful to have your leadership alongside Speaker Burns in the House, and thank you so much for all that you have done, are doing, and continue to do for us, especially on the front here in education. And with that, Dr. Longrear, I'm excited to turn the program over to you. Before you get started, if you'll allow me, I know you have a number of colleagues in surrounding counties that have, made the trip here today, but if there are, or for those superintendents that made the trip, could we start over here, maybe with any of you, and if you just stand and let us recognize you, tell us what county.
Paul Richard, Bryan County Schools. Barry Waller, Toombs County Schools. Chris Roker, Jeff Davis County Schools. Shane Williamson, Pike County Schools.
Denise Warnick, Manuel County Schools.
Jim Thompson, Spring County Schools. They didn't tell me I didn't have to worry about that.
Did they all sit over here? We got.
I'm Stacy Normal. I'm the assistant superintendent in Jefferson County.
And we've seen you before. So good to have all of you. Appreciate very much. Pleasure having you, and thank you for making the trip to be with us today. Thank you for all you do for kids across the state. Dr. Longrill, thank you so much once again for hosting us, and we will turn the floor over to you. Look forward to hearing what you have for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate everybody being here. Welcome to Metter College and Career Academy. This building, this addition to Metter High School, this is the first year that we've been in this facility. And this room was designed, it's a community room, and a room to bring people together to better the community. And I think this is a great example regionally of bringing people in from across the state to look at how we can improve. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for this committee, as First Lady Burns said, the idea of taking a pause and saying, where can we get better? What do we need to reevaluate, remove, add, whatever that is? I think that's such an important part of the improvement process. And it really is a driving force behind our school improvement plan. I put a copy in front of some of y'all, and I'm going to reference it in just a minute, but several years ago, our leadership team read a book, and it was called Leadership is Language, and we did a book study on it. And it's all about taking planned pauses and creating opportunities for people that are at the ground floor where the work's taking place to be able to say, hey, time out, we might want to reevaluate how we're doing something. And I think this is a great example of that, and that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. I do want to thank our regional folks for coming. I know Senator Billy Hickman was introduced earlier, but he's such an advocate for public education. Him and I communicate frequently. Him being the chair of the Education Committee is wonderful. And of course, Chris Irwin and I talk a lot as well, and as well as with other superintendents. So thank both of them, and Senator, thank you for being here. We do have Rashida Taylor, who's a city council person here representing, and have a lot of our leaders, instructional coaches, administrators over here, and you'll hear from some of them today. So want to talk about, again, the purpose, and it's really, I want this to be a collaborative, warm, welcoming environment where we have a conversation. And we're going to really focus on three things today. And I know that the purpose of this committee is red tape, and removing the red tape and the barriers that it might bring with it. We want to focus on three things. One, we want you to have a better understanding of the assessment process. We are for accountability, and we're not saying we want to do away with accountability. But we put so much stake in the outcomes and results of accountability. We want to take that planned pause and say, all right, let's really look at what we're measuring, how we're measuring, and part of it is how well are our teachers doing, and make sure that the assessments that you're going to get a chance to put your hands on, are they really measuring what we want? Let's look at a historical perspective of how the assessments have changed. That's going to be one thing. We're going to look at the climate rating and some of the aspects of the climate rating and maybe some unintended consequences with those. And my assistant superintendent, Dr. John Jordan, and Dr. Robbie Dollar, head of student services and special ed, will kind of lead us through that. And then the last little bit we want to talk about is we put such a focus on mental health and addressing mental health needs for students. The things that we're asking counselors to do that are assessed and measured often get in the way of their ability to sit down and really meet the needs of some students. So those are the three things. But if you look at our strategic plan, the center point of all of it is 100% of our staff collaborating and working together to improve. And that's why I'm so encouraged by the gathering right here, is us getting together, hearing different voices and seeing all right, where can we get better and improve? So I can't say enough about our Board of Education. You heard from Chairman Lanier, have two of our representatives here, Ms. Brenda Brown and Cheryl Hendricks, Chris West and Jason Douglas, our other two. Our board is clearly aligned with the mission of improving student outcomes. We have some wonderful things going on in this district. From a perspective standpoint, we have 2,200 students in our district, which is relatively small. We tell people we're small enough to know the individual needs of every student, but we're big enough to be able to provide it for them. And that's really what drives our work. We're a diverse population. We're 45% white, we're 28% black, 22% Hispanic, and 5% multiracial. 100% of our students in this district eat lunch and breakfast at no cost. Over 80% of our students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So it's a diverse population, but we have some wonderful things going on. As you mentioned the GOAT, some people over here reminded me that I need to point out two purposes. One, the GOAT is saving, financially, fiscally responsible, helping us keep some of the weeds down. Right. But the other thing is I wanted to remind y'all, and this is from their request, GOAT represents greatest of all time, and the people that we have working in this district and the students that we have are accomplishing amazing things. And I hope you get a picture of that today from our presentations. We want it to be open-ended, a lot of opportunity to talk, discuss. We'll have lunch. As we have lunch, we'll have time for conversation, and then we'd love to show you this small edition of our College and Career Academy and some of the things that our students are getting an opportunity to do to prepare them for careers. Thanks again. Chairman Blackman, I can't say enough how appreciative I am of this and for the opportunity to host right here. Anytime there's something regionally, this place is available. So y'all keep that in mind. But thank you, welcome. Restrooms are just outside the door. Please feel free to come and go as you need to. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our middle school principal, Dr. Will Thigpen. Dr. Thigpen is an amazing leader. I was a principal in a neighboring county, and he was a student of mine. His wife is a media specialist here. Will and them have been with us for about 18 years, 16. Hey, time flies. But he's analytical, he's relational, he's innovative, and the things he's doing at the middle school level are amazing. He has the perspective of an elementary teacher and also an instructional coach, and he's taken some of those ideas and taken them to lead the middle school. But I've asked him to carry the brunt of the load today, and I know he's more than capable. So, Dr. Thigpen, please.
Can I stand here? All right. Good morning. I just want to say I'm so thankful for everybody in this room. It's obvious to me that there's a passion in this room. You all care. You came to listen this morning. So I'm really thankful. I don't take this opportunity for granted. We're supposed to be here. Today I'm going to talk about measuring teacher effectiveness and assessments. Like Dr. Longer said, I am Will Thigpen. Just a little background about being in education for 16 years. I had the opportunity to work as an instructional coach at the elementary school level, had the opportunity to work as an assistant principal at the elementary school level. I've been a middle school principal for 6 years, but by far the best time that I've had in education was when I was in the classroom. So this is me with the students that I taught in 2015. You will notice that I have a lot less gray hair in that picture, and I do believe that that is related to the role that I'm in now. But I want to just share a personal story about my last 2 years in the classroom. I want to start here. So in 2014, I was teaching reading in ELA, and we worked really hard that year. We're really excited, looking forward to taking the CRCT. And at the end of the year, our students in that grade level in Candler County had 94.5% meet or exceed reading on the end of year test. In ELA, which is English Language Arts, a little more grammar based, we had 87.5% meet or exceeded in ELA. we're pretty fired up about that. It was slightly better than the year before, but I felt like going into summer school, I had those other 5.5% that didn't meet and exceed on reading. We were able to go in summer school and do some great things and close some gaps. Felt pretty confident about that. The next year, they combined it into one test, now called the Georgia Milestones, and I had 30.4% of my students proficient or above in ELA. A little less excited about that. And I thought back to my group before, said, hey, maybe this was just really off year for me. I want to know how those kids that I had last year did. So I went, looked at the same group of kids that I taught the year before, and 25.7% of them were proficient and above in reading and ELA. Statewide that year, third grade students in the state of Georgia went from 95.2 in reading, 88.5 in ELA, to 36.9 proficient and above in reading and ELA combined. So what happened? We shifted, we changed our assessment. I understand that assessments we have to assess. I love accountability. I know that we have federally mandated assessments. I understand all of those things, but there was a change. We had a shift from CRCT to the Georgia Milestones Assessment, and I think it's really hard to talk about that shift if you weren't there. So I would like to do something a little bit unorthodox today, and I appreciate you guys in advance for being good sports. So we're going to have you experience the shift. You are actually going to have a little piece of Georgia CRCT, and then you are going to take Georgia Milestones Assessment. Now, don't worry, we're only giving you third grade, okay? We will look at your results. We will not judge at the end, but we're going to spend 10 minutes full test. If we were doing a full test, we'd have a couple of 80-minute sessions, but we won't do that to you. We'll give you 10 minutes on the CRT, and then we'll transition over to milestones test, and you'll have about 20 minutes to complete that because it is just a hair more rigorous. All right, so at this time, I'm going to welcome up, we've been talking about GOATs a lot this morning. Miss Kim Woods is the greatest of all time when it comes to literacy. She has 28 years in the profession as an elementary school teacher, and she currently serves as an academic coach. I've asked her to help me administer these assessments. So, Miss Kim?
Dr. Thigpen, would this qualify as a pop quiz, you think? Can we call this well, I think I remember that from my school years.
Yes, sir. And these are publicly released items. It's not secure testing. So, just want to make sure I say that for the record.
Yeah.
Good morning. I will be your teacher and test administrator in this little scenario, and you will be receiving a Scantron and a passage and some questions. And we're also going to make sure that you get some dividers so that we can keep you honest.
Guess I gotta wake up now.
I know. Coffee. I got one. So I was ready. Yeah.
I got a pen.
Yeah.
You all look really trustworthy.
Yes.
Just in case.
Little divider, all right.
Yeah, so how am I supposed to cheat now?
Right. Okay, how's it go? Like this?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. I can still do that.
Yeah, we can see.
Here you go. Can you set your there you go. All right, I saw some people starting early, so I'm going to have to contact the state and let them know there's been an irregularity. We're going to have to throw out the results. No, we'll begin with Ms. Kim's instructions. Ms. Kim, if you don't mind, make sure you're talking to the mic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, does everyone have their Scantron? Can you get a thumbs up? Everyone have a pencil? And everyone has a test booklet with questions. All right, today you will take the third grade ELA Criterion Reference Competency Test. Read the passage and questions carefully, then answer the 15 questions. The first 10 questions pertain to the passage, and the last 5 questions are grammar competency questions. Be sure to mark your response on the Scantron. Please go ahead and write your name on your Scantrons. You will have 10 minutes to complete your assessment. You may begin.
You have 5 minutes.
All right, you may put your pencils down. To stay next to the microphone. And someone will come and take up your Scantron and your test booklet. And you can take a quick brain break as we prepare for our next assessment, which will be the Georgia milestones.
All right, as Ms. Kim is handing out your materials, we're going to give you some scratch paper that you can write on if you need to brainstorm. You may notice that you are now using a computer. You also have some headphones you will need to hear some items. We have some interactive items now.
Dr. Thickman, did I
Yes, sir.
understand you to say this is off the record?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now we are ready to begin your Georgia Milestones Assessment. Today you will take the third grade ELA Georgia Milestones Assessment. You have been provided with scratch paper and a writer's checklist. Please make sure your headphones are working properly and you can hear the audio. Carefully read the passage and complete the 4 text-based questions and the writing task. Read the tools page on your own. You will have 15 minutes to complete your assessment. You may begin.
You're at the halfway point. Have about 7 more minutes.
You have 1 minute left. You may now end your test. Thank you all for participating in our scenario. Before I turn it back over to Mr. Will to finish his presentation, I'd like to share that I was a second grade teacher for the predominance of my teaching career. And in second grade, you're teaching students to read and build fluency and just have a love for reading. And then you can see the vast difference when you took the CRCT as opposed to taking the Georgia milestones in third grade. So I felt confident sending my second grade students to third grade taking a CRCT. But once I saw the Georgia milestones, there was a different feeling for whether my students were prepared enough to take the milestones. So I hope that this little scenario helped you all experience what our students experience each year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Are you guys good? Do y'all need a break? No,
I don't know if I speak for the rest of the folks up here, but point taken.
I would normally in the school setting we would give you graham crackers and juice right now. So I'm not sure why. It's just something we do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, when a child moves from this versus the iPad type situation, how do they, this is pretty self-explanatory. So surely there's some type of, not training on how to answer the question, but there's a certain amount of training that has to go into just maneuvering through the process and all.
Absolutely, that's
Now,
actually.
in all fairness to this crowd today, there was no training given to this group. So I think there's a certain margin of error that severely needs to be taken into consideration on that.
Okay. For the record, I want to say this: we're not scoring anything. We don't even have the capability of scoring your milestones. That was a practice test that is online to help them to practice and maneuver those things. I think what you have to think about, because some of you guys may not be technology natives, and I think something we're really quick to say is that kids are native to technology. So you just put a kid on that computer and they're able to maneuver all that. That's not true. We take a lot of time to train them how to do that, but guess what? That takes time away from them. All right. We ask them to do those things, and even when they know how to work those buttons, they're executive functioning as an 8-year-old to do all those things and construct an essay and synthesize all that stuff. I mean, that's an advantage y'all got over them.
Dr. Thigpen, I just wanted to acknowledge, I believe that was an invitation to come test the Senate Education Committee
As you can see, I don't say no to opportunity, so I'm happy.
In this situation.
Yes, sir.
Even the size of the wording was terrible.
I will say that for students who have identified special needs in those areas, we are able to accommodate that with larger text on the computer and things like that. So that there is that. So I want to share that. So obviously, like you said, point taken. But it would be hard for me to say that we increase rigor on the third grade test, and that goes for every test that we give. But it would be hard for me to just say we increase rigor. You guys will say, okay, well, you don't want them to be challenged, okay, or you wouldn't say that, but the general public may say that. So you see exactly what I'm talking about. But another thing, so we increase rigor, but we also increase cut scores. So the percentage of items that the students have to answer correctly increase simultaneously with the change in the test. So now, whereas a student may answer 45 to 50% of items correct, which is kind of what, SAT, if you score 500 in one section, 1,000 overall, you're getting about half correct. It went from 45 to 50 to about 65% of questions that you had to get correct in order to be proficient. So to use a basketball analogy, because I'm a man and we always have to use sports analogies, that would be like saying that a good shooter in basketball, 45, 50% shots, they hit them, but then, all right, now you got to hit 65% of your shots, but we're raising the goal from a 10-foot goal to I don't know, what y'all think? 12, 13, maybe even higher? All right, so just to prove that point. So why do we do this? So I remember I was there when it happened, but I went back to the GOSA website, Governor's Office of Student Achievement, and there's a national assessment that occurs every few years, and they take a very small sample from each state, and they give them this national assessment, and they compare how states are doing to one another, and they create, it's called NAEP. So when at the time in 2013, this article comes out and it said that, based on NAEP's recommendations, we need to increase our rigor and we need to raise our cut scores because what the kids that we said were proficient didn't align to the kids that they said were proficient. So that was the driving force behind this. So what we also did, we started milestones in 2015, we increased rigor, we had higher cut scores. We also began to implement TEKS around the same time, and we said, all right, we've got this new evaluation system, and the results of this test are going to count towards 50% of your teacher evaluation, okay? Now that's decreased to 30%, and thanks to whoever did that. But it's still a big portion of your evaluation. It still matters a lot. So with all of that added pressure to perform, what do y'all think happened to third grade proficiency rates over the past 10 years? They go up, down, I don't know. So you'll see at 2015, that's my little red star there, we were at a 36.9 statewide, and in 2025 at a 34.9% statewide. And you can see it's pretty much bounced up and down within a couple of percentage points ever since we started for the past 10 years. But we want to be competitive nationally, so like with NAEP, maybe, we're seeing it there. So again, 2015, the little yellow line is Georgia. We're above national averages in fourth grade reading NAEP scores. But then you see that little yellow line decline, and there were some national declines probably contributed to COVID, but I definitely don't think it has helped us to soar with the nation So I don't know that we got the outcomes that we wanted. So I want to say, because I know this has been a little bit sobering, so I want to say thank you so much for House Bill 307, Georgia Early Literacy Act, our new ELA standards and assessments. We haven't seen the assessments yet. I haven't seen what that's going to look like. I don't know much about the cut scores. It's all very hush-hush, but we've gotten some samples, and I promise you the rigor's still there. One might argue maybe even turning it up just another notch. This is the caution. What we assess, how we assess, and how we use the assessments will continue to determine what happens in classrooms around Georgia. There are unintended consequences when you do this. So more time synthesizing information from multiple sources and constructing essays on a computer equals less time solidifying foundational skills such as phonics, handwriting, and spelling. We can talk about phonics all day long, and we can put laws in place all day long, but if you hold people accountable for what you just experienced, that's where they're going to spend their time. These are conversations I've heard. I'd love to teach them cursive, but that won't be on the test. They have to practice typing so they can finish their essays on the milestones. Some of these kids' little hands, they can't even put their fingers on the home keys and reach the whole keyboard. I'm sorry, we can't talk about that right now. You still need to annotate this complex text so you can cite your text evidence in order to determine the credibility of your sources. That gets in the way of exploratory conversation in the classroom. And things naturally begin to trickle down. Ms. Kim shared her experience as a second grade teacher. I was in third grade, so we used to PLC together, and I'm trying to get their help on how can we get these kids ready, because when we're getting them, you guys have been laying a foundation, that's great, but we got too much to do in a few months to get them ready for milestones. So how can we, and naturally it just starts to travel down to second, travels down to first. This is my daughter Lindley. She's 7. She is currently a second grader at Metter Elementary School. Lindley loves to read. She loves to write. I would say she's a proficient reader and a proficient writer. What Lindley does not love to do is cite textual evidence. Just this week, she got her new frog costume in. She loves to save frogs from our pool. That's a picture of her with a bloated frog out of the pool. We had a funeral for a stick, her favorite stick that broke. But Lindley is going to be asked to do what you all just did. And, they're already doing it in class, honestly, because they're trying to prepare her. But, she's really going to have to do it on a high-stakes test in a year. Another unintended consequence, which we've alluded to, is just building on foundation that's not yet solid. We're trying to build a very complex building structure house on a very wet foundation. We got phonics, but let's transition to this writing. Let's transition to analyzing these texts and annotating. So, question I have for you guys today, because this is really related to mandates that affect school administrators. So, are these assessments truly measuring teacher, leader, and school effectiveness? And that's what I think we have to ask ourselves. This is again, comes from GOSA website, but it is a graphic that shows ELA proficiency or above on the left-hand side, and on the bottom it shows direct certification, the percentage of direct certification students, which means that they are on government assistance and they were able to certify that they are living in poverty. So you'll notice that as the poverty level increases, what happens? There is a direct negative correlation. It says it on the governor's website. There's a direct negative correlation between third grade reading proficiency and poverty. This was a graph that was put out by AGAC in 2016 because not only did these go on our school evaluations, our teacher evaluations, our leader evaluations, but we get a nice little grade for all of our schools and our systems, and whether you say there's an A attached or you just call it a number, it's still a grade. But back then they were still attaching the letters, and you can see in extreme poverty schools, 82% were Fs, 17% were Ds, but then in low poverty schools, we had about, I don't know, it's so small I can't even see it, Fs, 4% Ds. So again, a direct correlation between poverty and grades that schools are receiving. So I feel like the message is that teachers and leaders in low poverty schools are more effective than teachers and leaders in high poverty schools. That's what we're putting out there. So how does this impact school administrators? Well, we'll begin with teacher burnout. 2022 report that came out said in Georgia said that assessment and pressures / unrealistic expectations were two of the top 5 reasons that teachers are leaving the profession, burning out. It affects our recruitment and retention. Teachers are leaving the profession, but they're also leaving rural districts. It contributes to student apathy. I work with middle schoolers now, and if I had $1 for every time I've heard, why do I care about passing the milestones? I've never passed one. I'm not going to pass one. They've already experienced failure after failure after failure after failure. It contributes to student behaviors. If you have a kid that already is having a hard time sitting still, they're already having a hard time conforming to the classroom, and you start asking them to do stuff on a day-to-day basis like you guys are doing, what are you going to do? They start to engage in extreme behaviors to escape the classroom. And I don't think it's any coincidence that that's increased. It impacts leadership retention and leadership pipeline. So this is, depending on how you slice it, about 60% of my evaluation for next year on Georgia Leads. And it also impacts economic growth for rural areas. So if I'm looking at houses and I'm thinking about moving my business to Metter, Georgia, there's a nice little rating down there at the bottom on our schools, which comes almost exclusively from standardized test scores. Other thing that really matters a lot to us is how public education and the teaching profession is presented to the public. When we talk about third grade reading scores, or any scores for that matter, it's important to consider the content and the expectations of the assessments. When we say that we only have 30-something% of third graders proficient, what are we really talking about? I think Dr. Longer alluded to this earlier. I'm all for accountability. When I taught and we were taking CRCT, I got fired up. I was ready to get those kids ready for the test at the end of the year because I felt like I was playing a game that I could win. Unfortunately, for the teachers who have entered the profession for the last 10 years, I don't think they've been able to experience that. And that's really sad to me. This is my daughter, Marley. She's a high schooler here at Metter High School. Ever since I can remember, Marley has talked about going into teaching. She wanted to be an elementary school teacher. She has parents who are passionate educators. We believe in public education. And ever since she was little, I've always encouraged her. I feel like it's a good profession. I feel like we make a difference. But as an administrator over the past 6 years, I've been seeing people come into the profession, young teachers, and I see them come in with so much passion and optimism, and I see them year after year experience failure after failure, being told that their students are failing, and I see that light dim. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I can really encourage her to do that for 30 years. I appreciate your time today, guys. Thank you so much for being here and giving me a minute and listening, okay?
Dr. Thigpen, I know I have at least one member wants to ask a question. If
Absolutely.
you don't mind, Dr. Longrear, if that won't.
Now I'm in the hot seat.
Representative Ballard?
Some of it's a comment, some of it's a question.
First of all, I am hard pressed to find anybody in the state of Georgia, except perhaps at the Department of Education, who likes the milestones test. The kids hate it, the parents hate it, the teachers hate it, the building administrators hate it, and the people at every central office I've talked to hate it. It's inappropriate for motor skills for our littles, and what it measures is just not very great. With that being said, I don't know that the CRCT was quite rigorous enough, and I think I don't know why we just didn't make the CRCT just a scooch harder.
Just move the cut scores up on that, and then.
What I would, and there's a number of superintendents I know in this room. In House Bill 538, the Georgia Early Literacy Act, there is built into the law the assessments beginning, middle, and end of the year, which are designed to show the growth of the student. And I think that, especially in our little ones, the growth of that child is what we need to be measuring. That is the sign of an active learner. That is the sign of a good teacher who grows that kiddo. Thank you. And I've sat down with my superintendent in Houston County and my assistant superintendent, and I, for one, am going to try to use House Bill 538 to get us to go and see if, I don't know how this is going to work with the feds. I don't know if they'll pitch a fit. But I would like for us to go to measuring a child's growth rather than a snapshot in time. And I don't know if it's doable, but I would love to start looking at it, and I would love y'all's support to start looking at that.
Well, thank you.
I really have a question. I just wanted to yell about the milestones.
Well, I think your question was, do I approve of your statement? And the answer is yes. One of the issues too with the growth that we see on milestones, because we do get student growth percentiles, but what was published and what we see is the, absolute, proficiency, but also we just got student growth percentiles like a week or two ago. So like those teachers from last year that saw that only 30, whatever percent, they're getting that, but now their kids are gone. They probably already quit teaching. It's late. It's late. So we need growth measures that we can see in a timely fashion too.
Whereas let's take House Bill 538 one more time. If that beginning of the year assessment shows a kid, who's slightly below grade level, but then that end of the year assessment, that teacher sees that they got them either to grade level or, even above, that's a teacher that's going home for the summer happy.
There you go. Thank you.
Can I give you a little bit more ammunition for your, I totally 100% agree with you that we need to look at cohort data and how students are growing, because that shows us teachers being effective in engaging with kids. But another thing about the milestones assessment is that 15% of the score that we receive as a school system or by grade level is called closing the gap. And what that is they take the fifth grade that took the test last year, then they take the fifth grade that took it this year, and they say, hey, did you close that gap between those two grade levels? But it's two totally different group of kids. So, and then once you get to 90% in a closing the gap score, and the next grade level that comes by, now remember, it's your fourth grade from last year that's now in fifth grade, totally apples and oranges. They make an 89.5, you get a red flag. You didn't close that gap. So there's some more ammunition that it really doesn't, the assessment, the score itself does not reflect cohort growth, because when I'm presenting data to my board, we spend a lot of time saying, hey, we didn't close the gap here. This fifth grade fell a little bit behind last year's fifth grade, but look at their cohort data. Look at that pre and interim post assessment that they took. They did actually grow. Our teachers grew those kids, but they did get a red flag. So there's a little bit more information to support. I fully support you.
Thanks. I know there's some others that want to have maybe some input. This is a good discussion that needs to continue. Dr. Longrear, I think, did you have something, Ms. Dale? I'm sorry.
I had a question. Yes, ma'am. So they took the milestone last March or April?
Yes, late April, May,
Late
depending
April.
on the
And you
district.
just got the scores back.
We got the initial how many people were proficient in those sorts of things, but then the student growth percentiles and then our closing the gap information, we're just getting that information.
So they're
And-
taking the test on the computer, so the results should be available even before that group of students leaves that teacher's classroom, right? Could be.
We
to
definitely, again, we get how many kids passed, did not pass, but
Yeah.
then all the other stuff, I'm not sure with the, I'm not sure, maybe some chat GPT could help them analyze the data, but it definitely takes a long time. I think they're
So
doing it by hand.
it confuses me because it is a computerized test, so it can't be used to inform summer programs or tutoring or placement for the next school year to help the child.
We do know whether or not they pass.
But that other data that's kind of holistic and collective really could drive some administrative thoughts and so forth. It's very relatable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're just a little bit behind, so
Yes,
all
sir.
I was going to say, I didn't know Ms. Dale had a question there, but if anybody, else wants to weigh in, I know we're going to be here beyond our meeting time for lunch and, have some room for some other discussions, very important discussions. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Well, I presented on it, but I'm definitely not the expert. There are plenty of experts in this room, so feel free to talk to everyone. Yeah,
It's good
thank you.
stuff. Thank you very much. I know.
Well, good morning. I want to publicly commend Dr. Thigpen and his team for leading us in that session and tackling that very difficult topic. In preparation, he said, it's going to be pretty risky to have a hands-on opportunity for this committee. He said, but it'll be memorable. And so it was definitely memorable, and appreciate you leading that, Dr. Thigpen. I'm John Jordan, and I serve as assistant superintendent in this school system, and proud to do so. I'm in my 27th year in education, and served in a variety of roles: teacher and coach, and assistant principal, and also as had the great fortune to be the high school principal here in this county as well for a 10-year period. I am still recovering from that, by the way. And along with along with me serving in this, or being able to lead us in our next topic, is Dr. Dollar.
Hey, good morning. My name's Robbie Dollar. I currently serve as Director of Student Services, Special Education Director, CTA Director. But you can see both John and myself have had similar backgrounds. So we've had the pleasure and the privilege of serving in the classroom, having an opportunity to interact with students in extracurricular activities, as well as serving as a leader in buildings in various capacities. So we just wanted to share that to tell you that we were coming from experience and things that we've had the opportunity to engage in the past. Our topic today is how do school discipline requirements and reporting mandates influence school climate and administrative workload, and let you know that there can possibly be an unintended paradox. So,
Thank you. First, we'd like to thank the committee for your focus and for your efforts to reduce and prioritize mandates as it relates to public schools. Georgia, we tout that we're the #1 state to do business, and believe public education is absolutely the foundation of that. So we believe what we're talking about. But closely akin to this topic, closely akin to what Dr. Thigpen was talking about, do assessments really measure what they're intended to measure, is this topic: school climate ratings and perceptions. And does it tell the whole picture? School climate ratings and so forth, does it really tell the whole picture? So we want to start off with two very familiar scenarios. And two very familiar scenarios. One, we have a family that's moving into the area. and they're trying to determine what school or what school system to place their child, okay? And before we go to the next step, we also, another familiar scenario, a teacher or an educator is looking for employment, and they're looking at different school systems, and they're trying to determine which schools they want to apply to. Both will have an opportunity to look at the STAR climate rating, okay? STAR climate rating. There you go, the STAR climate rating, to determine which one they feel like is the most safe school, which one is the best school, which one provides the most quality or a high quality education. And if they were looking, they might see some have a 4-star climate rating, or a 3-star climate rating, or a 2-star, and so forth. And using that basis to make a determination to that extent. The problem is unintended. It's unintended, but it doesn't always paint a right picture. It doesn't always represent. A 4-star school or a 4-star system doesn't always mean that it's a safer school or a high quality school. And we're going to get into those components in just a few moments, okay?
All right, so just to be fair and to be transparent, there are a variety of inputs that go into determining that STAR climate rating. And as we've tried to convey throughout the presentations that's already occurred, nobody is arguing that there doesn't need to be an accountability process. And certainly we want to be as transparent as we can possibly be. In order to derive at this STAR climate rating that individuals have an opportunity to look at, there's 4 main inputs that go into that. One of those being perceptions. And we all know that we're familiar with the adage that perception is reality. But I want you to keep in mind a variety of things that go in place with those perceptions. Overarchingly, I think most people would argue or would agree that people are less desirous of being held accountable. And I'm talking overarchingly. It seems like there seems to be a greater degree of disagreement in what is true accountability for there. So perception survey results go into this STAR climate rating. Those perception results come from the students themselves. They're administered a survey. Staff members are administered a survey. It's relatively easy for districts and for the state as a whole to gain that information because you have instantaneous access to those. You can cause a student to answer that survey. You can cause a staff member to answer that survey. But getting parent survey results back, which you're required to do, and we certainly value their input, but it can be an arduous process at best, getting them to complete those survey results. But you also have to bear in mind that their experiences based on what they're hearing their students say or what they're hearing friends of their students say can impact what their perception is. Student discipline data, again, we want to try to keep in mind the importance of being very transparent. We want to be very open with that. But you also have to remember that there are a variety of individuals that are inputting that data. Administrator will spend a rather significant amount of their time not only dealing with that student discipline, but also having to ensure that that is reflected accurately. Sometimes teachers can be guilty of looking at a situation or a circumstance and identifying that as being something that has a very negative connotation with it. When you get to doing a little bit of investigation in that, you find out that it wasn't quite as challenging as what they presented. And or on the other side of that, you understand as an administrator that some of the things that are being inputted, or some of the information or data that is being inputted, has a very negative connotation with that. That's not a desire not to be honest. That's not a desire to be less than transparent, but it takes time to be able to investigate that and to make sure that it's reported accurately, because that information is going to the state, is going to have a derivative effect of impacting that star climate rating, but it also could have other negative implications for that. Obviously, we want to have safe and substance-free environments for our students to come, for our community as a whole. You can see here, reports of violence, bullying, or unsafe events. In South Georgia, one of the greatest events that we have take place is a Friday night football game. It's a wonderful place for a community to come together, but you also got to keep in mind this community coming together, and sometimes you don't necessarily have control over everything that transpires or happens there. So the last component of that is attendance, and we just made a point there that the challenge, the discipline component can penalize accurate reporting even when it reflects strong safety enforcement. So if you're, and please forgive me for saying it this way, but when you're strong on crime, the perception can be, well, y'all got a lot of problems, when in reality what you're trying to ensure is that you have a minimal amount of problems. So you can see how those are contradictory to one another, but all of them are intricately interwoven. The problem is you have to be very astute at looking at what's happening and then trying to make an accurate determination about, is it truly what is there?
Yeah, that's absolutely the paradox. And that's exactly what we're talking about. The paradox is how transparent a school is can sometimes create punishment for that school or that school district. So looking at these points right here, schools that enforce discipline consistently and report incidents accurately, okay, often receive lower school climate ratings. I mean, that's a given. The more incidences and so forth, okay. All right, and schools that underreport, reclassify, or minimize incidents may appear safer. Let me stop there for a second. Underreport, reclassify, or minimize. Intentional, unintentional. I mean, it's hard to talk about motivations of different individuals that are making those decisions. We're unaware. I just know that these can take place across the state at different times. But again, it's about the appearing safer more than how effective they truly are. And then again, going back to the added burden, reporting expectations have expanded. Each incident must be coded, verified, and uploaded across systems. Now, it doesn't say system, that says systems. It's multiple systems. Same infraction, going into school information systems, and then it's uploaded to the DOE, and then it's just a verification process. And at each level is an additional opportunity for work, but it's also an additional opportunity for mistakes to be made. So just jumping to the bottom, schools that prioritize student safety, integrity, and accurate reporting may appear less successful. It may appear, and that's the whole question. What it presents, is it reality? And do we have the correct mechanism in place that displays that? And that's the question before this committee as you move forward. Doc?
Okay. So why does it matter? Well, any teacher preparation program, one of the things that they're going to try to drive into their students that are, endeavoring to become teacher leaders is the fact that our first and foremost responsibility is safety. That comes before anything else. Before we teach them how to read, before we teach them how to do mathematics, our first priority is to make sure that those students are safe. All right, so as we consider those things, you can look at each one of the stakeholder groups that we've identified here, and when you think about this idea of trying to ensure that our schools are safe, that our schools are structured, that our schools are holding students to the degree of accountability that is going to enable them to be successful adults. Let's consider that for just a little bit. Now, from a parent perspective, this is what parents say. You can look at countless studies, and I believe them to be true, and that parents want their children to come to school and be safe. Everybody wants their child to be safe. This particular article that we're citing, the Gallup study here, safety is the number one priority when choosing schools. 87% cite it as their top concern, right? Now, I would argue this with you. That is true all the time, except when their child is getting in trouble. Their perception of whether or not their child should be in trouble for that changes drastically. But they will tell you, and I believe that they feel this in their hearts, that safety is their number one concern. Teachers, 4 in 5 educators say student behavior causes major stress and burnout. You can look at countless articles. You can find countless articles. The numbers may change slightly depending upon who has conducted the study. But here's the truth of the matter. Dealing with students at times is always challenging. All right. However, I think that we are seeing at really proficient numbers now where it's more and more of a burden for teachers as they're trying to account for student success that is measured in terms of achievement, and then the reality of some of the issues that we're dealing with now with students. So 4 in 5 educators say student behavior causes major stress and burnout. 58% report behavior issues drive turnover and frustration, showing how discipline reporting directly impacts morale and retention. It's no surprise to anybody. This has been a case for a long time, but it seems to be getting worse, if you will. A large percentage of teachers that get out of the profession in the first 3 to 5 years, right? In large part because, dealing with student behaviors that are negative in nature, especially if those behaviors are allowed to continue to occur within a classroom, just makes people throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can find something else to do. Students, why is safety important for them? They want to come to a place where they feel like safe, where it's safe. Many students want to see all students held to the same level of accountability. However, again, going back to my parent earlier, that's not always the case when the student is the one being held accountable or not being allowed to misbehave. And then for schools, we want to have transparent and accurate reporting. However, again, we'll contend that at times it can have a negative connotation because all people see in many occurrences or many instances are statistics without realizing where those statistics are coming from.
Committee members, I know in front of you, you have the strategic plan for Canada County Schools that Dr. Longrear referenced earlier in his opening. If you look on that sheet, bottom left box, it says one of our components is to recruit and retain highly effective and passionate educators and staff is what it says, and it has a list of bullet points up under that. And then Dr. Thigpen referenced about burnout earlier with our staff, and he also referenced about recruitment efforts, current recruitment efforts, and also future recruitment efforts when he referenced his daughter and going into the teaching field. This component, along with assessment and other items, it directly ties, to this aspect. How do we talk about this teacher pipeline. We talk about being able to attract people to this profession. And so discipline and this mandate, it has an impact on that. But also, if you look on the bottom right of the strategic plan, we want to be the number one educational choice for all stakeholders. We do. We want to be the number one educational choice. And we talk about, again, Georgia being the number one state to do business in, and as we're attracting these companies and these businesses to come in and they're bringing their people with them, we want to be the number one state. We also want to be the number one educational choice for those families as they move into the area. So the reality is this, the discipline mandates and reporting requirements shape school climate ratings and public perceptions. and they often penalize transparency and increase administrative workload. And it just doesn't always reflect accurately. That's the message. It doesn't always reflect accurately. And so and for this group, again, this House Committee, as you're examining ways to reduce and prioritize mandates, we just ask for your consideration as you start to enter the legislative season that's coming up. And that concludes this presentation. We appreciate your attention and thank you.
Our time got cut short because Dr. Signe's time went way over.
Dr. Cooper?
Good morning.
All right.
My mom told me two things that I have learned and taken to heart. Don't get in the middle of two warring families, and do not get in the middle of people and their lunch. So they put me right before lunch, so I'd be brief, and I will. My topic is a bit heavy today when you think about the mental health challenges that we see around our country and what we're facing in our schools. I want to talk to you briefly about the evolving role of our school counselors and what that means for them as we face mental health crisis in America. Let me find a little clicker. Oh, I didn't tell you who I was, did I? I want to tell you this. After being in Caroline County for almost 50 years, I've never seen a goat on school campus. So that was amazing today. I have a brief characterization of a day in the life of a school counselor. And when you see this, it's a little bit of an animation. It's my voice, but I've never been a school counselor, but this is my voice when you see the character. But this is a true story. This really happened at the high school. And so when you hear it, just know, even though it says a day in a life, these events happened from 7:25 to 9 a.m. Here we go.
I arrived at 7:25 a.m. and began checking emails and voicemails. I quickly see that a DPAS referral that I had spent half the workday working on was greened out. Oh my goodness. The teachers, administrators, and I are deeply concerned about the student in whom I had submitted this case. Ugh. I pull out my notepad to take down information from my voice messages, in which there were 3. One parent wanted to speak to me about her homeschool child participating in our on-site SAT testing date. The second had questions about her child's NCAA eligibility. And the third was returning my phone call about her child's behavior and attendance. I really need to talk to her. While I was finishing up, a student who had scheduled a dual enrollment appointment with me was standing at my door. He was waiting patiently as I finished listening to my voice messages. Just as I was about to meet with him, in comes the assistant principal with 3 young ladies who were beefing about some drama that had began at a Friday night party and asked if I would get to the bottom of it before a fight ensued. I rescheduled my dual enrollment student. He understood. And then I conducted a restorative circle with the 3 young ladies. We resolved the issue, and they made commitments on how they would resolve conflicts going forward. I had to dash down the hall rather quickly because I'm doing bridge law activities. You science with 9th graders this morning, yay.
And it's 9 a.m. on a Monday. True story. Before we get into this evolving role of our school counselors, the CDC reported in 2023 that 4 in 10 students have persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And in that group, 2 in 10 had considered attempting suicide, and 1 in 10 actually made the attempt. Those statistics are a bit sobering. And therefore, as we know, there's an urgent need for effective mental health support in schools. Who's going to do it? Of course, the school counselor. And you just heard from our character what can happen on a Monday. And had she not taken the time to speak with those 3 ladies who were warring from something that happened outside of school, it's a lunchroom fight, right? So schools do serve as an access point for mental health, but it takes time to collaborate with all the resources that's necessary. You think about school counselors being in access, however, they are not trained clinicians. They can do crisis management, they can do intervention, they can provide support, but some of our students need psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health advocates, outside agencies. And to organize that, it takes time. So there is a desire in our schools to offer a comprehensive counseling program that effectively address our students' mental health needs. So we do have that desire. However, there are so many non-counseling duties. You think about the amount of testing. You just heard from Dr. Thigpen and his team about the testing duties. And if you think about going from paper to pencil to online and everything that has to happen and the organization of that, and at each school, counselors may be involved, if nothing but getting snacks and juice at the elementary school to all the kids and bottles of water so that they're ready. And as they get older, of course, what happens? More testing for the counselors. So it's a balancing act. When you look at this list, at every grade level, these are the activities that our counselors are constantly involved in. And as they get older, the dual enrollment and accelerated career diploma activities enter the group chat. And you know, with the ever-changing laws in dual enrollment, counselors have to stay up to date on what's happening, because you think your kid has their funding app ready and ready to go to the school, and then there's a new law or there's some new information, and if they miss it, the kids will have trouble getting into their college or university. So just looking at all those different activities, crisis management, conflict resolution, direct counseling, bridge law activities. You heard the counselor say, I'm going to meet with ninth graders, youth science, yay. And youth science is a great tool, but we have to figure out how to make the kids not hate it. So that takes time. And then you think about the academic and behavior intervention support. Dr. Dollar and Dr. Jordan just talked about some of those things. That takes time. And in the absence of a school social worker, that falls on the counselor. You heard her say, I spent half a day working on a DFACS referral just for it to get screened out. How demoralizing to spend half a day on a kid that you're really concerned about. Administrators see there's a problem. Teachers see there's a problem. The counselor sees that there's a problem. And you spend half a day working on trying to get help for that student, and the case gets screened out. And what would it take for us to have a real comprehensive counseling program that includes mental health? First of all, awareness. The counselor will have to be involved in awareness activities, because you know, in some communities, there's actually a stigma on mental health. People are afraid to say, I need help. So awareness. Appraisal and advisement. You have to really see what really is going on with the kid. If you dig deep, that takes time. To get them connected to the right resources, that takes time. Short-term counseling and crisis intervention. I had a meeting with the counselors about 3 years ago. We planned this meeting like 5 times. And the one time that we thought we'd finally get to sit down, one of our students was ran over and killed the night before. Nobody planned for that. So you think things are going smoothly, and bam, there's a crisis. And it takes all of our school counselors to help our students through it. Referrals to community resources. They have to advocate, collaborate, and coordinate with stakeholders. And in Candler County, we have something called an interagency meeting. Department of Family and Children Services, the Housing Authority, communities and schools, the bridge, everybody's there. But that takes time. And they talk through what families need help and assistance, and how can we better support our kids and their families. Families need access to mental health services. Well, the counselors need to know who those people are. They need to be able to reach out to them and spend the time building the case for what the child and their family need. And then, of course, with anything, you have to constantly update your professional knowledge. So what's happening? Well, you've heard burnout, I think, all morning long. One more time, burnout. There's an emotional toll on our counselors, because not only are they having to do a lot of non-counseling duties and having to do a lot of direct counseling, but there's mental health crisis. Sometimes goes deep in your soul and you take it home. And it's hard to leave it at work. And you're constantly worried about those kids because you know what's going on. And sometimes you feel like there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And that takes an emotional toll on our counselors. So, what am I asking for today? Well, first of all, for you to have a good lunch. No, I'm just kidding. No, what I'm asking for today is a call to action to let's try to reduce the administrative and non-counseling duties and take some of that burden from our counselors. I'm asking for schools to have social workers who can help make those connections between the community and the resources that our students need, get them licensed clinicians in the building to help with our children. I'm asking for an increase in resources, staffing, foster community relationships and partnerships to support our counselors, and collaboration across region, state to find out what can we really do to tackle this mental health crisis. And I know that will affect conversations and policy, so I really do appreciate you coming to Metter today and taking the time to hear us out. We really do appreciate it. And thanks for being good sports for taking the test.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
All right, Chairman, I know our time is up, so I'm going to wrap this thing up really quick. You know, when we look at the big picture here, we're so appreciative of the opportunity to share just some things that are happening on the ground floor that are significant. You know, I went to the Houston County listening session and I followed the Barrow County real close, and we just wanted to kind of complement those a little bit and bring in a different perspective because we agree with many of the things that were said there. Today, the big thing is we want accountability, but let's make sure that our assessments are not ultimately hurting our goal and not helping our goal. I think it's time for a planned pause to really look at that. The second piece with the student discipline and the star rating, I don't want there to be anything in place that would cause school administrators in any district to not firmly address behaviors that are disruptive to learning or counterproductive to teachers wanting to stay in the profession or for families to choose public education. And that's what might be happening unintentionally there. And then the third thing, I know there's emphasis on mental health services. Just wanted to kind of encourage the need for that. Representative Persinger, I know you led the 268 work, and there's so many good things in there that are unrolling, and I appreciate that. But I just want us to, again, as we reflect on this planned pause, if you will, something we do periodically here, let's make sure that everything that we're doing to assess and hold districts accountable is in the best interest of students, and there's not unintended consequences there. Our ROTC's been waiting faithfully. I'm going to ask them to come in, close the colors out, and then, Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you. And when you're ready for lunch, we'll give directions there, but please.
March, colors, hope, right, face, breathing, arm, order, arm, left, face, forward, march,
Well, Dr. Longrear, we'll kind of close up with a few comments here. If I will, I'll ask the committee members if they have anything further before we. get ready to adjourn. I want to, not oftentimes do we see so many additional members be here, so I want to once again thank Representative Townsend, Chairman Werkheiser. Thank you for being here. I really want to thank my good friend from the Senate, Chairman Hickman, for being with us today. Means a lot that you would take the time to be at a House study committee, and so thank you. Yeah, well, we work together on a number of fronts, and I appreciate your friendship. So thanks again for being here. And I tell you, district, I heard from him this morning, Chairman Parrish, who's a wonderful member and a great mentor to many of us in the House. And I did want to thank him so much for all he has done, I know, for this area and everything. And certainly, last but not least, to the First Lady of the House for honoring us today. We're grateful that you were able to make it, and thank you for being a part of it. Yes, ma'am. And again, thank you to the members. We will probably have one wrap-up meeting that may not necessarily be on location, but we'll get a chance to talk through some of these issues. And Dr. Longrear, I just want to thank you. You struck the exact chord that we have been trying to achieve through this study. So thank you for being such a great host and for putting together such a great presentation for us today, including the pop quiz. If nobody has anything further, I again, thank all the educators and superintendents in the room for the work that you do and what you do for our students across the state. And I think, any of us are willing to do the same, but my cell number is 478-918-7477. I have a few cards with me. If I can be of service to any of you, please let us know. You have anything further, Dr. Longrear?
Well, just kind of next steps. The goal is we're going to have a really good meal. The goal is for everybody here right now to stay and eat, and I would love for follow-up conversations to take place. We have some wonderful school people here that if you strategically place yourself where you can continue conversations. And then for those who can, we would love to show you just briefly, and if you have to go, I know it's Friday, but we have a wonderful set of labs here, some really neat career development opportunities going on in this building. So, but prior to eating, we'll say a blessing, and then I'm not 100% sure on the directions of the meal flow if we walk through.
I'll tell you what, we stand adjourned. We turn off the microphones, and if you have somebody lined up for, a blessing for the food, and I'll just leave it with you. Sounds great. Thank you again.
All right. I'm going to ask Jim Thompson, Superintendent in Screven County, to lead us in the prayer.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together, to collaborate, to hear these stories, to hear all this information from the folks here at Better. Just ask that the fruit of this be something that continues to help us make it better for the students that we serve and for our teachers and administrators and families in our communities. Father, we ask that you bless this time together, bless this conversation, bless this food.